This is episode 725. I'm joined by one of our co-hosts, fill-ins, is from the Lit Media Productions. And then we're joined by special guest, Lofa Tatupu, former NFL linebacker. He played for the Seahawks. Actually, he played for USC College and then Seahawks and then Atlanta Falcons for a bit. I just want to say thank you for joining us. It's truly an honor, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. First of all, how are you and your family doing so far during this tough situation? And where are you guys located right now?
Yeah, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington, Bellevue, Washington. And thank you for having me, first and foremost, fellas. And just trying to keep the proper perspective. And we're blessed to be healthy and be together in these interesting times, I'll say.
Yeah. So I'll let you start off, Tommy.
Okay. So as myself, Lofa, I've been a big Seahawks fan. I grew up watching you back in 2005. I'm from the Washington State. So what was it like playing in front of the 12s at Quest Field? Back then it was called Quest. Now it's called Lumen. Now it was, formerly known as Central. What was it like playing at Quest Field, alongside with those fans?
Man, I'll say that really we both kind of came to get, recognition in that 2005 season, not just myself, but also the Hawks and especially the 12s.
Yeah.
That the one thing that jumps out at me the most is the Giants game when they had 10 false starts, and you literally saw a fan base propel a team to a victory. And because I know there's a lot of people say, "Oh, the fans, they mean a lot to us." It is a home field advantage here, having them in the stadium, and it was incredible. That being my first experience in the NFL playing was having this incredible fan base.
Wow. So I want to, before we get to your football career, I want to ask you, growing up when you're a little child, and what made you get interested in the sports field and playing sports? Actually, I should say, did you play other sports before picking football, or?
Yeah, I played every sport: football, baseball, basketball, track. We weren't allowed to, in our household, to have an off season. You stay active, stay healthy. And but what really led me to find football as my passion was I'm second generation NFL. My dad played in the NFL for 14 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember, his last year in the NFL was 90, 91. And so I was 9 years old. So
Wow.
I had a clear picture of what I wanted my future to be like in terms of playing in the NFL. And so it started when I was about probably 5 or 6 years old, going to his games. And then, my dad was my hero, and I wanted to do what he did. So that's what really pushed me to pursue football as my career.
Now, what made you choose football? I know besides your dad playing football, what was like the mentality? What was your expectation to be on that gridiron as the same as you're, following your father's footsteps?
It's the physical nature of the game is what actually I gravitated to. It's crazy because football was probably my worst sport. I was really good at baseball, and my dad was telling me, he's like, "Hey, go play baseball," because he played football, and he was like, "You know what?" He said he could have probably played 20 years if he played baseball instead of football. But then basketball, I was pretty good at that, a pretty decent athlete, and football was the one I always had to work on. But it didn't seem like work to me because it was passion. I loved it. I loved going to practice when I was a kid. I loved every aspect of it, the competition aspect especially. It's really, that's what, when you say what drew me to it, the physical nature, that one-on-one matchup when, everything says on paper, this guy's bigger, stronger, faster, and you should not win, and you win. That is a feeling, an adrenaline rush that is, you can't replicate that. That's, a test of will and just sheer manhood, even at 7 years old, 8 years old, going up against someone that's bigger, stronger, faster. Because I was a heavy kid, and I always played with kids 4 years older than me. And so I didn't really stand out in football when I was young. In fact, everybody was like, "Man, I can't believe his dad's a professional athlete. Like, that kid doesn't look very good." He doesn't look very good at football. But so yeah, that's what it was. It was just the drive and the passion for football is what kept me, coming back to it. And then the physical, the physical aspect of it. It was the most fun sport for me.
So after your high school career, how many offers did you get coming out of high school, and what was the deciding factor choosing USC? obviously USC is a great college to play in, and especially football. But what was the deciding factor when you chose USC?
Well, when I left high school, I only had 4 offers, and none of them were USC. In fact, I transferred into SC. So UConn, Rutgers, and Temple, they were all Division I, and they wanted me to play quarterback. And yeah, the same. I had the same exact expression, like what? But I was a quarterback and a middle linebacker in high school, and one of my offensive linemen sent tapes to them, and they came and recruited both of us, but they wanted me to play quarterback, and I was like, well, if I go there and it doesn't work out, can I go play linebacker? And they're like, oh, we didn't even know you played defense. And so that was, soul crushing, but University of Maine, 1AA up in Orono, they came, and their head coach, Jack Cosgrove, he came down, and they had a lot of really talented linebackers, and we're even starting to put some into the NFL.
Right.
So they wanted me solely as a linebacker, and so I went up there, and in that 1 year, I had a good year. I split time until I finally got a chance halfway through the season to start, and led in or second in tackles and up there in interceptions and sacks, all the big plays. And from there, I decided to really challenge myself and transfer to Southern California. And then that was the next step of the process on the way to the NFL.
Now, what was the atmosphere like, playing in Maine, now going to USC? What was the difference between the atmosphere like as weather-wise and also the intensity-wise playing under, USC and Maine development programs?
I love my time in Maine, but in terms of atmosphere, because we work hard over there, but in terms of atmosphere, like when you're actually in the game, we maybe friends and family got maybe 10,000 fans, at Maine. In fact, the hockey team, I think they hold 11,000 indoors at that arena, and they sold out every game. And they got more fans than we did. It's a hockey school, but there are some football players that come from there.
Wow.
We go to SC though, and there was, they had just started to turn around. This was Pete's, I think, second year, and it was Carson Palmer, Troy Polamalu were our captains.
Oh, wow.
And you got one of the greatest defensive players in college and the NFL, Hall of Famer. And then you got Carson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winner, phenomenal pro too. And those are our captains when we got there. And so we started going on a winning streak. And by the third or fourth game, there's probably 80,000 of the 90,000 seats that it holds at the Coliseum. About 80,000 of them were filled, and it was incredible to watch. And then the next 2 years, when I finally got to start, because I had to sit out for my redshirt year, I think we sold out all 26 or all 13 home games that we had in those 2 years, and several years after that we did the same.
Man, that's crazy. You got to play with Carson Palmer and Troy Polamalu at the same time. That's like obviously.
I look back now and it's insane because there was 3 Heisman Trophy winners that I played with.
Yeah.
Carson, Matt Leinart.
Oh yeah.
Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
and then we had Mike Williams, Lendale White, Dwayne Jarrett, Steve Smith,
Yep.
Super Bowl champion winner. And now, that was just on our offense. So you couldn't help but get better going against those guys. I mean, we saw the best every day in practice.
So, obviously, you after your UFC career, you got drafted by the Seahawks. So take me back to your draft experience. What was that like, sitting there waiting with your family, spending time with your family and friends, and watching waiting for your name to be called, and finally your name got called by the Seahawks? What was that feeling like?
I mean, it's every kid's dream. And, I remember we were fortunate enough, my dad's teammate from SC, he let us use his beach house in Oceanside, California. And the one thing I wish I had done, looking back, I wish I had taken a look at the cell reception because it was on the beach, and there was no cell reception. So I had no idea I was about to get drafted. I had no communication with the team. All of a sudden, it just pops up, and the whole room erupts. We had, probably 50 or 60 my friends and family there, because we all saw it real time. Like, oh my God, the Seahawks jumped up, what are they going to take? And then my name pops up and my ugly picture. And, and so I get on the call with Holmgren, and he's like, hey, man, we didn't know, how to reach you. We were taking, a shot in the dark, just trying to, draft you because we had no communication. You sure you want to play football? I said, Coach, I'll be up there in a week, and, I'm going to prove you guys right for taking me.
Now, what was it like playing, with Pete Carroll, at USC for his 2 years? Mm-hmm. Now playing with Mike Holmgren. What was the difference between the coaching atmosphere between those two guys? One, great coaches overall. So what was the difference like between each coach?
Oh, I mean, polar opposites. You got Mike, who's huge. He's like 6'6". He's, he's very disciplined and regimented. And you got Pete, who's like 5'10", and loves to have fun, high energy, ultra competitive. Both of them, they're great leaders in their own right, but they're very, different in their approach and how they go about teaching. But they're both great teachers. That's really what it comes down to. And they're both leader of men, which is why they've led multiple teams to Super Bowls. And so it was an honor to play with both. But yeah, very contrasting, they're very different styles. And but they know how to get the best out of their players. And that's obvious with all the guys that they've put out, right?
Yeah. So Pete Carroll came after you left Seattle, right?
My last year here was Pete's first year here.
Oh, okay. So let me ask you this. So obviously you played with underneath him in USC. So what was it like getting to play underneath him again? In your last year in Seattle, and what was that like just to reunite with him?
Oh, it was cool. It was the same guy that was at SC, and it's refreshing to see. He didn't try to change his style or his approach because we did a lot of winning at SC. In the 2 years that I was fortunate to start there, 26 games, we won 25-1, fellas, and the one loss came in triple overtime at Cal to a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers. Ooh. So it was, we had a good run. And I knew if Pete just stayed true to himself, if he, his philosophy and his ethos in terms of competition, I knew he would get things turned around up here. Mike set the bar real high, and then Pete came in and reestablished it. And so it's incredible what he's been able to do. I'm not surprised, but it's really, I got to go from one end when I was in college, got to help build what was eventually a dynasty, right? And then on the other end, as I was leaving the NFL, I knew it was going to happen. And I saw, even with that first draft class, him and John, Schneider brought in, Russell Okung, Earl Thomas, Golden Tate, Cam Chancellor. Oh my God. I saw all these guys in that first class. And I was like, how are you going to top this? And, 11, they got KJ Wright and Sherman and Malcolm Smith. And then in 12, arguably their best class, you got Irvin, Russ, and Bobby. So it's like they keep outdoing themselves. And that's why that's how you have 10 years of success in terms of what they've been able to do up here.
Yeah, so just to follow up, well, obviously you guys spoke to the 12th man earlier in the show, but obviously the atmosphere is amazing there in Seattle. And like I said, I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan. And the Cowboys usually struggle in Seattle. So, but when it comes to the 12th man, so for you, what was it like just playing on that defense? Seattle's always known for their defense, obviously. And what was that mindset in the locker room before going into the game, game ready when it was game time?
Yeah, again, it was real natural for me. Like I said, it was the physicality and the aggressive aspect of football is what always drew me to the competition and the sport. And I had a lot of great leaders on the team, like especially my rookie year. Grant Wistrom, Ken Hamlin, Marquand Manuel, Marcus Trufant. We had leaders at every level, that defense, and it was one of the most physical defenses because for years before. And, a lot of Mike Holmgren's teams, they were always known for offense, right? Even the Green Bay days, I always loved watching Reggie White and the guys, get down, but everybody was always giving Brett Favre and them the credit, right? So when I got here to Seattle, it was kind of the same. You got a top-ranked, top 3 offense year in and year out with Walter Jones, Steve Hutchinson, Matt Hasselbeck, Sean Alexander, Bobby Ingram. You got all these stars on offense. And no one really knew who our defense was. And so that's why I said in 05, we almost kind of helped switch the brand of football to, no nonsense, hard nosed defense. And then again, you got the guys like, Cam and Earl and Mike Bennett, Cliff Averill, and KJ, Bobby, and they took it up another notch to one of the most dominant defenses we've ever seen, probably over like a 4 or 5 year stretch. So, and then when you have 65, 70,000 just going nuts, I mean, me, D.D. Lewis, Leroy Hill, and Julian Peterson, we were always a competition for the hit of the day, right? So, when the crowd goes, ooh, that, we were fighting for that. And when someone set the bar, the next one had to go, go higher.
Now, what was it like playing with like Jordan Babineau? You got all these guys around you. Marcus Drew, former Wazoo Coug, met him personally a couple of years ago. What was like being around those type of guys? What they brought to the table as a Seahawk yourself?
I mean, phenomenal athletes. Jordan got an incredible story going Division II. Like he fought for everything he earned, and it's incredible. I'm not surprised. That's one of my good friends, and same with True. Just unbelievable competitors, and so it was fun, man. Like those first couple years, 5, 6, 7, it was some of the most fun years of football. Just going out there and taking the field with those guys, my brothers.
Speaking of Marcus Trufant, he was on the show. He was on the show a couple months back. Trufant, and it was fun. He was fun to talk to. He's such an honor, and obviously a great player too back in the day. So for you, I know that the NFL is a business, and what was it tough leaving Seattle and moving on to Atlanta? Because I know that you got drafted from that team, and did you always think that you were going to finish with one team in your career?
Yeah, you want to at least, it's a business, but absolutely it was hard because, I poured everything into, on and off the field. I poured all my heart and soul and everything I did, for Seattle because, it was Seattle and the entire fan base was so good to me. And, I'm a guy who I really believe in loyalty. And I never wanted to put on another uniform. And I actually didn't. I got hurt yet again when I went to Atlanta. I put on the practice uniform. Right. I never got on the actual game uniform. And sorry about that, Atlanta. But so it was tough, definitely tough leaving another place that I call home because I grew up in Massachusetts my whole life, and then I really and now I find myself back here several years later. I love Seattle.
Now, you were a part of an assistant coaching after, the Super Bowl loss that we had, Super Bowl 49. How did it feel to come back to Seattle and coach a little bit more? That as a player, you played for Seattle for a long time. What was it like being a coach with Pete?
It was incredible. And I think, you just hit it right there. The aspect that was most interesting was watching, behind the scenes look at meetings and game prep and everything, because you do a ton when you're a player, but now as a coach, you're really developing the formula and what you believe is going to lead to success for your players as long as they execute. And so, I mean, I couldn't have picked a better group. I mean, the linebackers they had here, Bobby, KJ, you're talking about two of the best, in the league, but then also to ever put on that uniform. I got them as 1 and 2, in the history of this organization. And so it wasn't, who's going to say no to that as their opportunity to coach, right? So learned a ton about how players learn and, and communicate. And it's even more so because, as a middle linebacker, I thought I knew a lot of that. But, finding out how guys actually, take in the information that you give to them and make sense of it. It's really, you become a teacher. And it was fun. I missed being around the game, so much that like, even when I was back home, just raising my boys, I would go down to like a local high school game and just watch because I love football and a football guy at heart. And so that was, I'll go back to some capacity of football in another few years. When my kids get too old, right now they're 10 and 6, when they don't want to hang out with dad anymore because dad's not cool, then I'll go back.
Yeah, because I can see you being a great head coach or a linebackers coach again in the league, whatever you decide to do, and because you have that real the mindset of being a great coach, and I feel like you can do that. So I want to ask you. Obviously you coach KJ Wright, and obviously the linebackers are Bobby Wagner, but I want to get to KJ Wright here real quick because he's a free agent right now. Did you reach out to him recently here to see how he is and what his mindset is? Because I'm surprised that he's still out there on the board.
Yeah, KJ is going to be fine for whatever he chooses to do, wherever he chooses to go. I'm hoping it's back with us. In his last 2 years, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's been his most productive. And I mean, that's odd to see from somebody who went to a Pro Bowl, should have went to a couple more, but I think he had a career best in tackles a year ago and interceptions. And then this past year, he was the only person in the NFL with, it was, I forget the exact stats, but it was like 10 pass breakups, 10 tackles for loss, and something else. And it's like, okay, the only person. And now we're talking about that's pretty special, right? There's a lot of great players out there on defense, but I feel for KJ. He's never gotten the respect he deserves. I mean, you look at his resume and his stats. It's they say a lot that he should have been to more Pro Bowls, and especially with the success of this defense and this team over the 10 years since he's been here. The guy. I've been around a lot of guys that can, they know all three positions. They can play all three decent. This guy can play all three, Mike, Sam, Will, at a Pro Bowl level. And I've never seen anybody with that ability. And that's why he's so rare, and he's, I feel underappreciated, man.
Now, during your 2005 run to the Super Bowl, against the Steelers, what was the atmosphere like bringing a title back, an NFC Championship back to Seattle? You played Carolina in the final game, NFC Championship game, but you guys won both against them and the Redskins. What did it feel like to bring a championship to Seattle again, an NFC Championship back to Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, it's always awesome, being the first, right? That was special, and that whole year, it's crazy because when I get asked that question, I expected it, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, the Seahawks came out of nowhere. Yeah. No, they were right on the doorstep just the 2 or 3 years prior, going to the playoffs, and a couple pieces, here and there in free agency, and then draft me and Leroy starting on that Super Bowl team. I knew something special was in the making, and just because it felt a lot like it did when I was at SC. And I'm talking just a team that loved each other, a team that loved playing ball and didn't care who got the credit. That's what makes a championship team. That as long as we win, I don't care if I get any tackles, sacks, interception. Still got to do my job, but the glory doesn't matter because it's the mission, and all of us winning the Super Bowl. So that NFC Championship was special, and wish we had one more win in our belt in that year,
though. So speaking of Pro Bowls, I know that some players do not care about the Pro Bowl now, but for you obviously you were a 3-time Pro Bowl. So this explain to me your experience at the Pro Bowl. Did you care about the Pro Bowl, or what was it like just playing with other great talent on the same field?
I mean, I'd be lying if I say it didn't mean something to me, but I would trade all of them for one Super Bowl ring. Yeah. And so I'll get that out there. But the coolest thing about the Pro Bowl is you get to go, and there's still some guys that are, in their 10th, 11th year making Pro Bowls, which means, 10, 11 years before, you were like 12 years old, 13. And so you get to see some of these guys and, talk to them and talk football. Oh, where'd it go? I know. Sorry about that. For me, getting to speak to, they weren't 10 years old. They were probably 5 or 6. Yeah. Zach Thomas, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. It's hard not to be a fan of football. I know because now you're playing, you're in the NFL, right? So, but these are all guys that you watched every Saturday, every Sunday, and when they were in college in the NFL, and now you get to sit at a table and just all we're doing is talking football. That's the coolest thing. Is like you're not going to find somebody over there that doesn't love football.
Right. And just to piggy off from that, so looking back at your career, obviously you had a great career, in my opinion. And how grateful are you to be in this position right now, being able to play the game you love and also coach the game you love also. So how grateful that you're in this position right now, and your family seeing you succeed in a high level.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, football's given a lot to me, not just in terms of, life, but just life lessons, the teamwork and everything, everybody pulling in the same direction for one common goal, being part of something bigger than yourself. That's really the stuff that guys miss when they leave the game, is their brothers and fighting for that championship. But I'm incredibly grateful for the game of football, for everything it's done for me and my loved ones. And so I'm always going to look to give back and pass on the knowledge. Even like if a kid hits me up on Instagram, asking them about football and, how I got better, because there's all these things out there that weren't there when I was a kid, even Instagram, people posting their highlights. Well, if you take that and really break down the film, you can find out what makes each player special.
Right.
And that's, YouTube wasn't around when I was a kid. You either saw it live or you didn't see it. You were hopefully someone had a recording of it. They aired it like a week later. But, so that's really something where I think kids can get an edge now. And so I'll always give back to the game because the game's given me everything.
Sure. Now you're going back to USC. You played with Troy Polamalu. You guys kind of faced off at the Super Bowl. What was it like to be part of that? As two USC former Trojans, what was that special moment for you guys to be playing against each other?
Yeah, I mean, from everybody looks up to Troy. He's just one of those guys, man. Like the stuff he did in practice, like I'm talking routinely catching, one of those Carson Palmer fastballs like across the middle with one hand. It was just like, that should have dislocated all of his fingers and just plucked it out of the air and ran the other way with it. But he set the standard for how you go about practice, how you go about film study. So those are some of the things I got to learn from Troy in that 1 year that we were together at SC. And then you watch him go to the NFL and just wreak havoc, man. And so it's special, man. It was awesome to watch. All the things other than one game. It was awesome to watch him. It was awesome to watch him do everything he did, and then eventually we knew Troy was going to be a Hall of Famer at SC.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody did, man. That's how rare his talent was, and he made us all better by just the approach he took.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get him on the show at some point. It's gonna be fun.
Sure. Yeah,
but we need to get him back on those Head and Shoulders commercials too. That was funny. Those are classics.
I wish he would do more. I mean, because he's got that person. He's charismatic. He's very quiet.
Yeah.
I don't think he's shy. He's just quiet. That's just who he is, naturally. But I mean, if you do get him talking, he'll have you laughing, man.
Yeah. So speaking of, I want to get to the things that you're doing now. Obviously, you have the sweatshirt on right now, Zone In. You're the co-founder of Zone In, and also not only that, you're the co-founder of 1937 Farms. So if you don't mind, could you explain both of them and what you guys do?
Yeah. So several years ago, after the NFL, came back and coached. And when I came back and coached, bought some property, that was to be used in the recreational cannabis business, I-502 out here in Washington, if you're familiar with it. And so with that building in place, me and one of my business partners, Matt McCoy, former San Diego State and Seattle Seahawks, we took over and ran and created our own brand, 1937 Farms. And so when that happened, I started hearing more and more about CBD, and it piqued my interest, just because I kept hearing about all the healing properties that it had. And so I started doing my research. This was back, we're in 2021 right now. It was about 5 years ago, like 2016, as I was leaving football. And I was overweight. I was probably 280 pounds. Like right now I'm 240. I'm back at my playing weight. Body constantly in pain, mind constantly in pain. And within a week of taking a quality full spectrum, extract, also known as CBD or full spectrum hemp, I started to just feel like Superman again. I mean, I hadn't felt this good since I was like 18. It was like not in 1 year of my college and NFL. I'm telling you, fellas, it was insane. Not in 1 year of my college or NFL career did I ever feel this, healthy. And so, 10 surgeries, 15 concussions took me out of football. That's why I only played 6 years. A lot of people like when they asked me, like, what'd you play, like 8, 10 years? I was like, no, man, I played 6 years. And if you really count the games, it was like 5 years and 5 games. And so, I wish it could have been longer. And with CBD, it would have been longer. That's why I'm glad to see all these other athletes advocating on behalf of, hemp and cannabis. And so when it put me back together after everything I was going through, I knew if this was that powerful of a medicine to put me back together the way it has, everybody's got to know about it because, I started just for 3 years before I started zoning CBD. I just started buying it and handing it out to friends and family. Right. Yo, you got to try this. You got to try this, and educating them about what it was and what it wasn't. And so it was special for me to come back to health. But when you see somebody else live a life that they've never dreamt of, like just in the zone, that's what it's about. And that's really how the name came. Zone in is off of positive psychology, also known as flow state, which is also known as being in the zone. And so really what it's done is like, it's just put everything into perspective for me, and I'm living life effortlessly these days.
So is there a chance that you can come back in the NFL and play?
I could. I don't know how long I'll last, but I can play. I promise you I could play. But I don't think anybody wants to see a 38-year-old middle linebacker out there right now. Yeah. But if the Hawks ever get into a jam, which I hope they do not, I'll go back out and play for Pete and John.
Yeah, speaking of Seattle, back in 2017, you came up to the fans, came back with Walter Jones, all those guys to raise the 12-man flag against the Niners. How did it feel to raise that 12-man flag before the game went on?
That was one of the coolest things, I think, and for my kids to get to experience it, because they don't even think they know that Dad played football. I'm telling you, I think my oldest, like some of his friends, because he's 10, some of his friends like, oh, your dad used to play ball because, their fathers or brothers know. And my kid's like, what? Like, what's football? But to have them stand up there with me, raise the flag, because when you're on the field, that's a real moment, like where everybody's like, oh, I wonder who's raising the flag, right? And so to be able to come back and do that for the opening game, I believe against the Niners, the divisional opponent, it was cool, man. It was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, speaking of that game, I was literally sitting next to my dad. I had the family there, first Seahawks game against the Niners, so that's a good rivalry. Look over and like Lofa Tatupu, we had Mark, all the guys from the 05 team. Like, well, I got to get a video of that. So I was at that game, and when I recognized, I'm like, man, that feels bringing childhood back watching you play, especially raising the flag and watching, other players such as, like you said, Bobby Wagner, the younger guys play in your position.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Yeah, and Bobby and KJ. What was cool, almost all the guys that I coached were still either with the Hawks, and Brock Coyle, who was a backup, he was with the Niners. So like the whole linebacking crew got to see it that I coached, which was, I thought that was cool because Brock was a big part of those teams in 14, 15, and 16.
So not only you do those zone in 1937 farms, but you guys have a show called Seahawks Podcast. So I want to get to that. How did that come about? And how often do you guys do your shows? And how do you guys, and when it comes to guests, what do you guys, how often do you have guests on? And what's it like? What's it been like having a show like this, especially during COVID season?
I need to ask you guys about how to have guests on, because my guy Babs, Robert Turbin, we keep having to rebook because of schedule conflicts. So I'm gonna have to pick your brain on that one. But it started probably about a year ago around this time. A couple months before, when it was Super Bowl in Miami, I was down there doing a couple Radio Row, so bouncing around, and I saw one of my former buddies from college and from SC, and I was doing a show with his guys
Right.
on the Believe podcast network. And so I was doing it, had a blast. And after, he's like, hey, you should really, I got a buddy, Brett Davern, who was my co-host on that show. And he's like, he's just been doing it for the last year by himself. I think you would add a lot to it. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about podcasts. I've never even done one. And so again, I guess, I just jumped in. I said, fine. I got the microphone, I got the headset, and away we went. Because I mean, like I said, I'm always going to give back. So we talk a lot of football, some other things, and I always talk Seahawks. So going to have some more guests on in the future. And we shoot usually once a week, every Monday, and we put out the shows usually by Thursday or Friday.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what's it like being, instead of being a coach or, player, now a radio broadcaster, podcaster? What is that different like being being part of radio? That's different from being on the field. You went through media, especially with, a lot of television, but what's it like behind the scenes as a radio broadcaster?
Well, I'm a fan now, right? Instead of being a player or a coach, where you're more heavily involved, I actually feel my emotions these days when I'm watching a hockey game, because before it's just like, this is just business, whether you're playing or coaching. And so now, man, I do get super sad after a loss, because I'm not preparing for the next win. Like when you lose in the NFL as a player or coach, you're like, okay, this is where we went wrong. You're on to the next one mentally, but you have to take the learns and the lessons from that last game. Otherwise, it's going to rear its ugly head again. But as a fan, man, that 7 days apart or wherever we play next goes by so slow after a loss. And so me and we voice frustrations. I'm always, silver linings. I'm always trying to pick him back up, because he's always like, the sky's falling. I'm like, man, we're 12-4. Won the division. So, but it's a good, interesting dynamic.
I'm gonna speaking of on to the next one, I'm gonna bring on Bill Belichick's line right here, on to Cincinnati.
I know, right? But that's really, and as much as everybody gives him shit about that, it's like he's serious. He's like, look, ask me any questions you want. I have to see the film, which is what he always says, and then I'm already going to the next game. So like, don't talk to me about the last game, even as quick as the game ending, the post-game press conference. He really is already checked out, ready to go to the next opponent.
Mm-hmm. So a couple more things here before we let you go. What advice would you give these young athletes now, and that are trying to get to their goals, not only football but in any other sport? What advice would you give them?
Play everything. Don't just focus. If I were to just focus on football, I would not be nearly as good at football as I was, when it was all said and done, because there's a lot of other things that the games of baseball, basketball, they teach you, even track, proper running. I wish, because I was really a jumper and a thrower, I wish I really learned how to run properly. And I know it sounds funny for someone that was a professional athlete, but a lot of the injuries you could prevent, whether ankle, knee, or hip and low back, by having proper mechanics running. So that's one. Basketball. Everything is so short and condensed in terms of, and it happens so fast that when you do get out to the football field, it slows down. The game of football slows down because you're used to having like light speed.
Yeah.
And so those passing lanes, that's where I learned to get all my interceptions. Those are the opportunities where you find you get to track the ball and judge where your guy is in position to the ball and how to intercept that angle. That's where all my big interceptions came from, knowing when to take my shot. Baseball, even though I didn't play until freshman year, I stopped after my freshman year. Situationally, every pitch, if there's a man on first, man on second, you have to know where to go with the ball. And so it's teaching you to just really get that process down. And like all of those combined help translate, make me a better athlete, a better football player. And I think a lot of kids are hurting themselves by just playing football, by just playing basketball. there's elements of each sport that pour into the next one and can really make you better if if you're willing to try it. But if I stayed just playing football, I don't know if I make it. I mean, I think so, but without those big plays, I wouldn't have been me. That's the truth. That's what I was known for, was making the big play. Not so much one facet of my game, but interception, sack, whatever it took.
Yeah,
and then the other thing, the last thing I'll say, sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're gonna sleep, nutrition, and exercise.
Yeah.
Nutrition and exercise, yes, nutrition's super important, but sleep, if you don't get a good night's rest, look into it, because that's going to set up your productivity for the next day. It's going to determine how efficient you are, how clear you're thinking, And so those are areas that I wish, because I have sleep apnea, and that's something that the CBD also helped, hasn't cured,
right.
but it's I can tell when I don't get a good night's rest anymore, because I got the CPAP machine. And all sleep apnea is, for anybody listening that doesn't know, when you're sleeping, you stop breathing for short areas of time, and your body, your heart's still beating, and so you wake up like gasping for air. You don't ever get into the REM cycle of sleep, and so you never really fully recover. It's almost like you're doing a 2-a-day, man. You work out 1 turn a day while you're sleeping. Your body's working overtime to try to keep you alive. So those are the areas I would say, man, if you could focus on that, play every sport you can, and then sleep, nutrition, because you're going to exercise, that's how you make it.
Yeah, especially playing different sports, like you said, does help with, agility, cardio, the way people move, because some people move differently than others. So especially baseball, moving, getting that get off, it helps you out with, if you're playing corner, it helps you get off faster, or you're playing D-line, just in general, the feet and the footwork, the mental state with it, mindset, it helps out a lot. When you were playing too, and other kids are now. That's what they're learning from.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, don't limit yourself. I mean, obviously, do what you love, because football is what I love, so I spend more time on it. But I mean, more time watching football. It wasn't like, okay, I got to play every day. You can't. It's a sport you can't play every day. And but just like I said, basketball was huge in terms of even from, you look at the elite athletes in basketball, their bend and body mechanics. I mean, their ankle or foot is barely touching the ground, and their knee is like that close to the ground, like Kyrie and all those guys that bring it right back. Well, as a receiver, or anybody trying to dip under a block, that's where that's going to come from.
Right.
And all the juke moves that like the great running backs had, they had the same ability to get to that position.
Yeah. So what? Do you have time for? We do this on the show. We do this a segment called the rapid fire segment. Do you have time to do a quick rapid fire segment?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite memorable game that you played in the NFL?
NFC Championship game.
Okay. Best rivalry game you played against?
Ooh, the Rams from 05 to we did a fair share of winning, but it was always close, and they had the first 3 years up on us. So it was, oh man, back and forth.
All right. I got to ask you this. I know you had long hair back in the day, just like Troy Polamalu. Do you miss your long hair?
Damn right I miss my hair. Yeah. So my dad told me I was there, when I got here, they were going to haze me and shave my head. So I just cut it. And then first meeting, Holmgren goes, there's no hazing here. And so I called my dad and I cussed him out. I was like, I can't believe you made me shave my head.
Okay. Funniest team that you've been around for so long, especially as a Seahawks player?
Oh man, there's so many characters. Jimmy Williams, cornerback, was. I mean, I don't care how bad your day was. Jimmy was going to make you smile. That's my guy.
Favorite NBA team?
Boston Celtics.
I totally agree with you on that one. Favorite stadium to play at besides Quest Field?
Either Philly, Kansas City, or Denver. Their fans, all of them are crazy, and I say that respectfully. I mean, they're great trash talkers and loud.
So I'm sure you competed against Tom Brady. So what was it like playing against? You didn't play? Did you get to play? No, right? So what was?
I was hurt the game he was supposed to play, or we played, or the year before, and then he was hurt. He tore his ACL the year that we were supposed to play. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, yeah. So what's it like then? What's it like seeing Tom Brady still go at it? 7 Super Bowl rings now, going for 8.
Well, this is what I'm talking about when you're talking about the Pro Bowl and stuff. And I don't know if I met Tom there, but when I was in junior in high school, Tom got drafted, and I went to school in New England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that he's still playing, Tom Brady, there's all these crazy memes that they've been on. But so Tom Brady, by the time I got in the NFL, was 7 years in with 3 Super Bowls. By the time I left, I think he had been to 2 more in those next 7 years. And then by the time now was another 7 years, he's won 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the fact that he's had 2 Hall of Fame careers, since before I was in the NFL, when I was in the NFL, and after. That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite NFL trading card. You probably collect cards like the one I have here of you. So what was one of your favorite trading cards you did as a kid?
Yeah. My all-time trading card is a Michael Jordan 85 Fleer.
Oh, wow.
But, my favorite trading card for football was Barry Sanders score rookie card.
Wow. Not your own card, right?
No. Those probably aren't even worth anything.
So the last 2 things here. So our team is part of the Hugh Jackson Foundation. We're trying to prevent human trafficking and making sure the community is safe and the kids make the right choices in their lives. Obviously, Hugh Jackson was a former NFL coach. He's trying to get back into coaching, but mainly focus on this foundation. And we're ambassadors for them right now, and we're trying to help them prevent human trafficking. And so I'm going to send you the page so you can check that out. And it's really inspiring, really grateful to be part of it. So I just want to bring that up real quick. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers?
Yeah, I appreciate, everything that you've done and continue to do for us. It's incredible. You're all the true heroes, and thank you. My love, energy, and prayers and best wishes are with you and your family.
Yeah, well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 725 with former Seahawks and Falcons linebacker Lofa Tatupu, 3-time Pro Bowl, and obviously a great career. And he has his own podcast called the Seahawks Podcast. Go check that out. And he's a co-founder of Zone In and 1937 Farms. Go check that out too. That's really amazing what you're doing with that stuff. And would you like to promote your podcast here on this show?
Yeah, Seahawks Pod, anywhere you get your audio. And been almost, I think it's been a year now. So pretty excited about that. Probably be talking about the draft coming up, and hopefully we're announcing a signing of KJ Wright soon, right? So, but yeah, check that out. Zone In CBD at zoneincbd.com. And if you're in Washington and over 21, you can check out 1937 Farms.
So there it is. And also, like I said, we would like to have you back as a returning guest so you can meet the full team at some point. But like I said, this was truly an honor, and this was awesome. I'll be posting this on all social media formats. And keep up the great work, and you and your family stay safe.
Fellas, I appreciate you. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
You too.